Guys, welcome to the Spotter Up Podcast, where we follow the traditional total man concept of gunfighter, writer, wild man, and monk.
I wanted to go ahead and cover a subject that a lot of people, I guess, maybe don't understand when it comes to, Arctic survival, as it were. Now, if you're stuck in the wilderness and you're traveling, probably the best thing to do is either stay put to your last position and hopefully someone knew where you were. But if you had to stop where you wanted to stop, like, for example, here in Alaska, a lot of the vegetation is actually survived all through the centuries and millennia through different methods, and that includes developing layers of sap or different types of bark that have oils in them that can actually be flammable. And that brings me to my primary subject of today, is making a fire in an Arctic climate. So we're going to talk about some things that I am actually able to get here in Alaska, and specifically on my property, and we're going to go through each of those items and how to set up a fire and not only get it started but keep it running. Okay, right now I want to talk about evergreen tree sap that grows around here. Now, these have been hit or cracked in some way, shape, or form, and they've secreted a sap, I guess, to sort of heal, or it's just some of the liquid that flows through to protect the wood from the freezing temperatures. It is soaked through, and some of this sap is pretty solid, but once it warms up, it becomes very gooey. But this stuff pretty much acts like gasoline, and when you're trying to start a fire, it can be pretty useful if you can get it warm, and that's probably going to mean that you're going to have to put in your kindling, like, we'll discuss that a little bit later, but like moss or, lint from your clothing even. So if you wish, you can actually get a knife and scrape off some of the bark and get shavings, and also get some of this sap on here. But basically, this is what you're looking at here. It's just little drops of basically evergreen fuel. Next thing on the list is going to be bark from birch trees. Now, in Alaska and in a lot of climates, they have something even similar to birch. And basically, you have bark that will peel off. You don't want to peel off too much, because if it's going to be something you're going to take from a tree, you don't want to kill the tree in the process. You don't want to sit there and peel off, 2, 3, 4 layers. There's plenty of bark to go around, and you just peel off that layer that's coming off. And this stuff has oil pockets in it that act like gasoline, and it's very thin, so it's actually very easy to get a flame in and of itself. Okay, another thing to consider is having sticks to basically ramp up the temperature in your fire and also maintain it. Now, it's not exactly feasible that you're going to be getting these huge logs to, light up, because most of the logs that have fallen and would be broken apart have probably molded, and they're really no good. And by the time they defrost, they're probably going to be just waterlogged, and it's not really going to light. It'll actually let your fire die out before it helps you at all. So, as you can see here, there's plenty of little branches, and that's pretty much as good as I'm going to get. I'm going to have to pull a lot of this from snow, and that's fine, but you can get a lot of little twigs, and they tend to last a good long time. Okay, now the last thing that we need to talk about before we get into lighting techniques and some other materials is your base. Now, if you're under a canopy, it would be a good idea to try to clear out the ground. Typically the snow won't be that deep, and then you're pretty much home free. And now, before you worry about wildfires and stuff, if there's in an Arctic condition, typically the snow will create a water barrier, so you're pretty safe there, and you have plenty of snow around you to reinforce that or build up the wall as you see fit. So it shouldn't be that big of an issue. The only thing that you want to worry about is what's above you. And I've cleared out a bunch of sticks and stuff, so I don't have anything for about 8 feet. So I'm pretty good there, and plus this fire isn't really going to be like a bonfire, so there's very little opportunity for it to actually reach that high, but it is still a consideration that you want to keep in mind. So if you wish to be in the open, that's fine, but if it starts snowing, you're probably going to want to be a little bit under the canopy. So therein, it's probably best to be under the canopy. So let's go ahead and look at how we're going to get all this started. So as you can see here, I have a bit of a combination of mossy branches that were dead, and I have some birch bark and little sticks that I've chopped up. Now you can light this whole thing on fire if you wish, or it'll be a little wiser to just break it up. But let's go ahead and talk about things to get it started. Now you can brush two sticks together, but here's the thing, there's no reason to. Anywhere you go, you can grab Bic lighters or butane lighters or something. You can have a tiny one or you can have a big one. And really, there's no excuse. These things are really inexpensive, and you can get way better flame than you can with matches. Now, granted, you can light a whole book of matches and get it really hot, but I prefer to have multiple strike capability, because once they're burned, they're done. You can hold this down for as long as you need it to, and if you keep it on your body, even if it gets wet, typically that water will vape out and you can start lighting again. Some matches, even if they're fire or waterproof matches, they'll typically go out after a while if the humidity gets to it enough. So let's go ahead and talk about setting up so we can start this fire with lighters. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my birch bark and I'm going to go ahead and make it really thin. That way the fire can reach as much of it as possible and light as much of it as possible, and make it to where the fire doesn't have to fight in order to set it and heat it up and burn it. So that'll really help you in getting a fire started and keep it running from there. Okay, so here we go. As you can see, the birch just takes right off. As you can see here, the fire is pretty much self-sustaining at this point, and it's burning pretty good. It's burning through all the little branches, so I can just add on little sticks. You want to keep them nice and small and probably thin until it gets a lot hotter, and pretty much that's it. You don't really need anything too extravagant. You don't need trioxane tablets to get a fire going. It helps, but really it's not necessary, as you can see. I just basically took my bundle of sticks that had a bunch of moss on it, and I just put it over top of the birch, and I had to go get a little bit more birch. I didn't quite have enough. I just got maybe 2 times as much as I had, and that was pretty much it. So as you can see here, it's not really catching the ground on fire. It's not that big of an issue, and I'm just basically recycling anything that was overhanging and just putting it right back on top. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Let me know what your style of starting a fire is, if you have one, and yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and let this burn out. I don't need it to sustain itself, but you do want a lot of wood. You want a lot of small wood. You probably want to keep around a lot of birch bark to give you a good boost right away. And then you probably want to have, a bunch of sticks, and just keep going on the underbrush of the evergreen trees and collect it from there, and you should be good. You can keep this fire going for a long time. It burns really well, as you can see. Thanks a lot for watching, and you guys stay safe, and remember, keep your fires under control and everything will be alright.